blues are very important. Like if you're learning how to play jazz music, if you're learning how to play music in general, really, learning the blues is a very important part of that, because basically without the blues, you don't have music. You don't have Western music, at least. You don't have rock music. You don't have hard rock. You don't have metal. You don't have jazz. You don't have any of the stuff that comes out of the 20th century. The British wave, all those things. You don't have those without the blues, and jazz as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where the blues starts. I want to talk about traditional like 12-bar blues, and then how that evolved into like jazz blues using substitution and things like that kind of came from the bebop blokes like Charlie Parker and Bud Powell and Dizzy Gillespie, and how they took that blues form and turned it into something completely different. Now for something completely different. So I thought I'd start. I actually have I have a Sibelius thing here. I've got my 12 bars here, and I've filled them up with slashes. I'll do it in like a guitarist key, I suppose. So we'll talk about it in the key of E. So if we have E7, E7 would be, we're in the key of E, and E7 is going to be our first chord. So the first chord in a key in a blues in E is going to be E7, and it's generally going to go between the 1, the 4, and the 5 of the key of E7. So E7, A7, and E7. So the first 4 bars are kind of like that. E7, A7, and then E7 again. So that's our first 4 bars. Now we're on to go to the 4 again, which is the A7. Back to E7 here, yeah. So 2 bars of A7, and then 2 bars of E7, and then we get on to where we play the 5, the 4, and then back to the 1 again, and then probably back to the 5. So we've got B7 here, A7, and then E7, and then back to B7. Okay, so that would be our basic blues form. So if I'll play through it so you can hear what it sounds like. So E7, A7, E7, A7, E7, B7, A7, E7, and then B7. So that's our normal like blues form, right? And that's pretty. That's what you're going to be playing if you're playing a standard like traditional 12-bar blues. Now, if we talk about how we're going to change that and move that into more of a jazz style, generally when you're playing jazz music, or starting out playing jazz music, I'm not saying you'd never play a blues and E in jazz, but when I first started playing jazz music and when I was learning jazz music and things like that, the keys that you would most commonly play in would be the kind of the flattened keys, B flat, E flat, F blues, and that's kind of just because this music was played a lot on those kinds of instruments, on saxophones, on trumpets and things like that, and those were the keys that sat really well on those instruments. So probably the first jazz blues I learned was probably in B flat, if I'm going to be honest. One of the main differences, I suppose, between a traditional blues and a jazz blues is the use of these 2-5-1 cadences, right? The insertion of those into the form. The basic bare bones of the form are kind of gonna stay the same. The first 4 bars kind of being in the 1 territory, so you're going to be kind of in an E7 tonality, and then the next 4 bars are kind of going to be generally in an A7 tonality in the 4, and then the last 4 bars are kind of like a turnaround, just leading you back to the 1 chord. In the last 4 bars of this, the lead back is going 5, 4, 1, which kind of works. It has a bit of movement in it. You could play all of this the same, and the last 4 bars, instead of being 5, 4, 1, would be 2, 5, 1. So in the key of E7, that would be F minor 7, F sharp minor 7, sorry, B7, E7. So you can hear that resolution. That kind of resolution there. That's the word I was looking for. Resolution. Haha, I did it. I'm a musician now. I have a degree. Anyway, so let's talk about how we can change this E blues into more of a jazz thing. So I talked about changing these last 4 bars from 5, 4, 1 into a 2-5-1. So we can do that first. We F sharp minus 7, minus 7, not minus 6, and then B7 back to E7. So that would be the first change that you kind of make to make this more of a jazz sounding blues, right? So putting that 2-5-1. One of the things about jazz music, which I've said quite a lot, is it's abound with 2-5-1s. 2-5-1s are the go-to kind of progression that help move the harmony forward, rather than just going from one chord to another, placing a 5 chord before the chord that you're wanting to go to, or placing a 2-5 before the chord you go to, regardless of what sort of key you're in or whatever, is going to quote-unquote make it inherently more jazzy. So with that being said, you see here we go to an A7 chord, right? And there's this big old bar of nothing right here. We're just stagnant on this E7 chord. So something we could do, E itself is acting as a 5 chord to that A7, acting as a 5, resolving to the A7. But what we could do in this bar here is put in a 2-5 to lead to the A7. So the 2 of A is B minor, E7, A7. So we've got, instead of just going E7 for a whole bunch, going B minor, E7, A7. So now we have this kind of sound. So you can hear that already sounding a lot more jazzy. Obviously I'm putting in a walking bass line, which, you know, makes things sound more jazzy anyway, but having that little 2-5 there leads your ear on to that A7. Now another common thing in jazz blues is well, and in fact in a lot of traditional blues as well, but in this bar here, which you can see is kind of empty, putting a diminished chord in. So this would be like an A sharp or a B flat diminished sound here. So you'd sound like this, right? B minor to E7 to A7. So yeah, putting this this diminished chord in here is just a common blues thing, and it sounds really nice in the jazz setting as well. So we're getting more and more kind of close to what I would consider a jazz blues at this point. The next change I would kind of make is and you probably heard me playing it before, is placing a 5 chord before this F sharp minor 7 here. A 5 chord probably with a flattened 5 or a sharp 9, that kind of sound. So in this case it's a C sharp dominant 7, so C sharp 7. So that is going to be what we'd put there. Now if I was going to be really smart and funky and cool, you know, smart jazz guy, I would also put a 2 before that, so we'd have a G sharp minor 7, sorry. So now we've got like a 2-5, G sharp minor 7, C sharp 7 to F sharp minor 7. So we have this kind of 2-5, just like I did with this B minor, E7 to A7. If you put a G sharp minor 7, C sharp 7 to F sharp minor 7, you're well on your way to being a fancy jazz man. And then we've got our 2-5 back into the 1 here. Now the other thing that we might want to do to create a sense of jazziness and a sense of like what we call a turnaround. So generally when we get these last 4/2 bars of the form like this, we play what we call a turnaround. It's basically a resolution which quote unquote turns us back around into the beginning of the tune again, right? Now there's a bunch of different ways that you can do this. I mean, this is already a turnaround going from E7, B7 back to E7 here, but what we can do is we can add in a couple of different chords. Now just like I did here with this, placing that 2-5 before the F sharp minor, we can have a look. The B7 is definitely resolving to that to the E7. That's what that B7 kind of does. It creates that tension which leads us back to that E7. But what we can do is we can go ahead and make that a 2-5 rather than just a 5. So we can put an F sharp minor 7 right there. So these last 2 bars are we can put that 2-5 in there. So instead of it just being, now it's E7, F sharp minor 7, B7, E7. Now again we can kind of just work backwards, and we can put our C sharp 7 in here as well. And so now we get this kind of cool little turnaround where we have E7, C sharp 7, F minor 7, B7 back to E. So we get this kind of sound. You can hear that resolving back to that E7. This would be generally what I would consider a jazz blues.
Hi guys, I hope you like that. I've done several live streams over the last little while on how to play jazz music, and I'm working on cutting them up into more digestible chunks, and this was the first attempt at that. I'll be doing more of these as I work on my larger projects like the musical analysis essays and whatnot, so keep an eye out for those. If you like this video, go ahead and click the like button. If you want to see more of my content when it does come out, I'd love for you to subscribe, and if you do, press the little alarm bell next to it so you get notified when a new video comes out. Also, if you like my work and want to support me, even $1 a month is super helpful to me, so please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. And I'd also like to thank all my current patrons whose names are now on the screen. Your support is eternally appreciated. Much love. See you soon. Bye.